The steps that you kind of want to do, you want to be able to identify the polarization, the strategy, and then you want to counter it. And why would you want to counter the trash talk? Because if you don't, it stands. It also moves further into the society. And the other reason we need to counter it is you can't legislate to people. You can't say this, you can't say that, you can't say this. This has to come from social pressure. And it has to come from your own sense of morality. This really is a moral question here. So I encourage people here to first think about who they are before they start using these strategies. And for people to draw on their whole person. And for men and for women to draw on their masculine as well as their feminine side. I see debate as something that is necessary to work things out in our society. People have their own viewpoints. It's okay to be fierce in your own viewpoint, but you want to also be civil. And before you step into this, you have to understand this is like a vortex. It is so easy to get caught up in this as you step into this language and you're seeing it go back and forth between people, and you start to sort of identify with one group, right? And it's really easy then. You'll find yourself getting pulled into that. So about your personal being, civilis is the qualities of a citizen. And so, you know, think about who you are, your characters, your ethics, your personal responsibility, your standards. And we're hearing a lot about nationalism. Civic nationalism is when it doesn't really matter what your religion is, your racial background, or whatever. You identify as an American because of ideals and because of independent values. It's very important to express morality here in this. And courage. And that's very important because you're on the right side of history here. So there's no reason to feel reluctant to get into this. Latin, the virtus is the root of both virtue and virility. Think in terms of using the positive masculinity in yourself. Don't be afraid to go out there and be direct and to show strength. And you want to be the change you want to see. There's been so much discussion among women in the last month or so. This is something I developed a couple of years ago, but I am seeing many other women beginning to talk about the impact that women and the way that women communicate is beginning to have on the internet community and beyond. So there is a very positive femininity that both men and women can draw on. And that is, you know, Deborah Tanner, as a linguist at Georgetown, has studied the differences in gender in communication. Okay, there's some debate about this a bit. But generally, and it's not meant as mean, but men very often will be sort of into a one-upmanship a bit. You know that well, I know this, okay? Whereas women tend more to focus on each other and try to move to common ground. So as you do that, you want to stand by your own principles, but if you recognize merit, you want to say that. You know, that's a good point. I like your point. And you want to try to break through this attack, counterattack, because that's the downward spiral that's pulling everything down. And you want to model this, that strength is to be a civil person. And you have to do that to both sides. Not only the other side, but your own side as well. And it's not about being nicey nice or sugary sweet. And very often when I'll start talking about, you know, there's a problem with some of this language here, I'll have people say something derogatory like, oh, you're just being a clueless kumbaya. And I just let that stuff go right over my shoulder, because then I begin to show that I'm strong. This is the first counter strategy, which is the macro action of all of these. You'll be talking about any topic, whether it's healthcare or the environment or whatever. And suddenly you'll notice some of this language. When you notice this language, you want to drop the topic. You want to move the trash talk up into the front burner. And I call the propagandistic speech, these strategies, for short, I just call it trash talk, because everybody gets this. The trash talk's something that's not good. You want to stop and identify the manipulation. What's going on here? Is it stereotyping? Is it scapegoating? Is it dehumanization? And we need to look at the blogosphere and as Facebook. These social media sites are really our new public square. It used to be that what we read about the outside world was sort of filtered into us by the media, okay? So they were the gatekeepers. But on the internet, it's really the wild, wild west. So you are seeing and hearing the language of extremism. So the newspaper's not there telling people, you know, this is not a good idea. So you really have to put yourself forward as a gatekeeper. People will often say, well, you know, you don't like the way I said that? You're trying to censor me. You can continue to use this garbage talk. And I will follow you all the way down the thread and point out to everybody else who's reading every time you do this, okay? And I'm using my own free speech, all right? So it's not about censorship. Both scapegoating and stereotyping, those are the great simplifiers. The strategy is to divide people into two black-white groups. So what's the opposite? You want to muddy the puddle. And the best way to do that is to tell a story. Your direct experience of something can break right through ideology. Because ideology is made up of very general ideas. Human dignity is indivisible. That's just actually something that's now part of the German Constitution. And there are German Jews now who are worried about the treatment of the Muslims in Germany because they're saying, you know, this could come back. Feel and heal. This is an action. When you see this dehumanization, you immediately want to react. You don't want to let that go by. And you can tell people, look, this is the language of demagogues and dictators. It's not edgy, it's not imaginative, it's not innovative. It's just plain dangerous to everybody. And I actually, because I also can speak to German history, I will say, you know, it's actually shameful. Now, you know, if you know German history and you can get into that, that's fine. But very often people will say they don't know what they're doing. They have heard this on talk radio somewhere, and they just think it sounds edgy to call somebody a maggot or a vermin or, you know, a bacteria or something. You just have to let them know, you know, that's not a good idea. That's the language of demagogues and dictators. And they'll say, what do you mean? And you have to say, well, you don't have to explain to it. Just tell them. Go to wisegeek.com and just Google, what is dehumanization? And right there's a short little paragraph. Anybody can just read this paragraph, and right there in that paragraph is Adolf Hitler used the language of dehumanization. He called Jews vermin, rats, whatever, okay? Now, sometimes you'll see people calling other people cancer. When that happens, then you can step in and personalize it. Again, it's telling a personal story, but if you know somebody who suffered from cancer, or you're thinking, look, you know, there might be somebody else on this board who has somebody in their lives who's had cancer. Then that, all of a sudden, I've had many experiences of that breaking through really quickly, because especially you start talking about a woman friend who's had breast cancer, then there are going to be conservative women on that, or men who have had a wife with breast cancer or whatever, any kind of cancer. You talk about that. And then if somebody you've just been arguing with tells you, you know, I have cancer. You know, you empathize immediately. You just drop whatever you were arguing, and the empathy is extremely important. Praise the positive. That's the fourth one. And that's wherever you find it, you know, and if it's a positive comment, you want to encourage. And that root of that word, coeur, comes from French, which means moral courage. I see this all the time. Somebody will come in and make a constructive comment and nobody pays any attention. Okay? It is so important to let that person know that their presence is important. So you want to sow a seed with other people that are trying to change their mind. You don't have to make them understand it all down to the very end. You just have to sow a seed. You know, it's not a good idea, this kind of language. And then you want to hold your side to the same standards. Scapegoating. Again, scapegoating is black-white. It's all about blame. So anytime you see somebody putting the total blame on some group or some individual, that's scapegoating, okay, for a range of problems. Sometimes they'll mention different problems. Stereotyping, that's also black-white, and that's creating out-group. That's very negative, like liberals are lazy, arrogant, self-loathing, mentally ill, immoral, communist. You'll see liberals calling conservatives selfish, stupid, redneck, Bible-thumping trailer trash, fascists. And then this lexical fusion is another sign of this stereotyping. A liberal is the same thing as a communist, or a capitalist is the same thing as a fascist or a Nazi. And then they very often, people will represent themselves as being, purer than the driven snow. And then dehumanizing imagery, this is a gut level. The gut level. So you want to remember that dehumanizing imagery, that if you're still a human being, you should feel that right here. That should just hit you, make you feel sick. One person calling another human being a cancer, a virus, cockroaches, leeches, bloodsuckers, parasites, and maggots. I'm going to put different quotes. These are all quotes that are right out of threads that I've been on. And we're going to go through these steps. First, you want to identify, and then how you would respond, and then the counter strategy that you would use. So we will vote these Dem parasites off their seats. So is that scapegoating or stereotyping or dehumanization? Dehumanization. That is dehumanization. So what do you want to say to that person? Are you going to say, what do you mean you want to vote them out? You're not going to say that. What are you going to say? You're going to say, okay, you're going to move it to the front burner. You're going to move the language to the front burner. You're going to say, you know what? Calling Democrats parasites, that's dehumanization. Okay, you're changing the topic. This is not about the election anymore. And this is so much more important than hijacking threads. You know, don't hijack. This is so much more important. You want to stop and say, you know, that's dehumanization. And they'll go, well, what do you mean? What do you mean? And then what can you say? What do you mean? What do you mean? What can you say? Dehumanization is the language of dictators and demagogues. Okay? Well, what did I say that was dehumanizing? Parasites is dehumanizing. Okay? Oh, I don't believe you. Don't worry. Don't take my word for it. Go to wisegeek.com, and then you can Google what is dehumanization. Look it up for yourself. Then you're finished with this person. That's all you need to do. Okay? You've done your civic duty of simply confronting that language. This might be somebody that you like. This is your buddy who says to a conservative, go back to your trailer park and seethe. So is that scapegoating, or is that stereotyping, or is that dehumanization? That is stereotyping, because it's putting on a label. Okay, it's putting on a label. So it's black-white. Okay, stereotyping and scapegoating are black-white. So what do you do with black-white? You want to muddy the puddle. Okay, and what's the fastest way to break through that? You tell personal story. So what did I do in the middle of my talk to confront this stereotype about Bible-thumping trailer Tash? What did I do?
You said you could do it.
I said, look at me. Yeah, so see, the two of us here, okay? And that kind of thing really, it's just like you don't even have to explain. In telling that personal story, you do break through the stereotype. The Dem Party promotes the destruction of self-reliance, self-respect, and honor. It is the scourge of the earth. So is that scapegoating, stereotyping, or dehumanization? Scapegoating. That's scapegoating. That's all about blame. It's like, oh, all of these problems, it's all because of the Democratic Party. Nobody's self-reliant. Nobody has respect. You know, this kind of, it destroys people. You don't want to say, oh, no, no, you're not right, because, you know, this and that. First, you want to say what? This is scapegoating, okay? And then, what can you do then? It's the same as with stereotype. You tell a personal story, okay? So in my case, I would say, now wait a minute. And with scapegoating, this works really well. You don't know me. Wait a minute. You don't know me. I've been a Democratic Party, you know, voter for, 20 years. You know, I got my student loans, and I got this or I got that, you know. They've been with me on women's rights, you know. You can talk about your own personal experiences, and that's why you're a voter. Rethugs are the cancer. Enlightened people are the cure. So who are they talking about, this person, when they're using rethugs? Republicans. Rethug, you'll see, is a label for Republican. So rethugs are the cancer. But I wouldn't even fool with the rethug thing. I would go right after one word. What is this? This is dehumanization. This is dehumanization. Okay, you're calling a whole group cancer. Okay, And when I see cancer, then you could say this is the language of demagogues and dictators if you want to, because they did use also these kinds of words. But you could also stop and say, and I find, sometimes woman to woman, this is a little bit quicker. You can just say, wait a minute. If you've had cancer, that's really powerful. If you say, wait a minute, I've had cancer. I don't like this. You're naming the frame. You're switching the frame. So you're no longer talking about, two different groups, but you're talking about a common experience many people have had. Okay, so you're breaking through to your humanity here. Okay, so next one. Liberals are compassion fascists. What is that when you see that, compassion fascist? What's going on there?
Fusion.
The welding, that's that fusion of two words, okay? That's also a labeling, and the labeling is mostly what? Is
Propaganda.
It's propaganda, but which of the strategies is being used here? Stereotyping. That's such a sweeping statement. Something like that is really sort of difficult to break down. But very often, again, I would just tell a personal story. And of course, I can talk about my own background, that I've studied this stuff, and I can tell you for sure that compassion and fascism don't go together.
Yeah, it's oxymoron.
Right. Or you can just talk about a particular person that who is liberal and compassionate, and who they are and what they do in their lives. And is that a negative thing? And again, for conservatives, it's very important. Morality is very important. Liberals should talk about morality much more. But if you can just simply point out, if you think it's immoral for people to be compassionate, put the question out there. You think it's immoral to be really compassionate? Republicans are maggots feeding on the Wall Street carcass. So what is that? That is dehumanization. There's another way to say that, right? And it's hard when it's somebody who's on your side of an issue to call them on that. And so I'm actually not very popular among partisans on either side. People that lean towards more the middle are glad to see me on board. But it's confusing for people that are on your side. And when you actually will compliment people on the other side when they're civil, that it has the effect of upsetting the apple cart. All of a sudden you're interfering with that downward spiral. But that's how you counter this language. Calling people white or black trash is uncalled for. So we have 4 counter strategies, right? Name the frame, muddy the puddle, feel and heal, and the 4th one is what? Praise the positive. I don't know if this person is Republican or Democrat, doesn't matter to me. That's a positive statement. And I will take the time to say, wow, I'm so glad that you said that. I'm really tired of hearing people calling each other, black trash, white trash, or whatever. We're all human beings. The Democrat Party is a vehicle for the far left to destroy America. Oh, it's all propagandist. Who said scapegoating? Yes, it's scapegoating, okay? First of all, who are we talking about? This is so general. You can also ask people to get specific. You can say, this is scapegoating here. What do you mean? Who specifically are you talking about with the far left? I don't know too many people that are card-carrying communists and are handing out communist literature. So you can get people to try to define it a bit too, but you want to identify it. And then you can talk about, if you are a member of the Democratic Party, talk about your experience, your personal experience of how it's made a difference in your lives. Have you seen these teabaggers on TV? Fat, ugly, middle-aged, white, toothless, with nothing better to do after shopping at Walmart. Shoplifting. Yes. So that's definitely stereotyping, right?
Well, we have a right to be teabaggers too. These fat, ugly, middle-aged.
Right, yeah, right. Right, that's right. And there's also, this expression teabaggers is considered to be very, very vulgar. Tea Party people do not like it. And so I avoid that myself. I don't use it.
I have my own tea.
Yeah. Okay, well I avoid that. I usually use, I will say TP, but they chose Tea Parties. Liberals are failures in life. They are snotty little snide brats who have no respect for others. What is that? This is stereotyping, okay? So, you know, you can just break that down. Do you know a liberal who's not a failure in life? Talk about that liberal, okay? Do you know a liberal who is humble and does humble work? You know, talk about that. Most of the real people in our country are a complicated mix of conservative and liberal ideas and beliefs. Praise the positive. And it is true. A lot of research actually has shown that it's the political actors that are far more polarized than the body of American population, okay? It's just people are finding it difficult to talk about politics at all. So yeah, you want to let somebody know, oh, you're so right, I feel like that. You know, I'm so glad to say somebody say that or express that. And this is another one. This one goes right to people's hearts. You know, calling people conservatards, libtards, rightards. Now, what is that? That's not really dehumanization, but what is it? Name calling. I would say, hey, wait a minute. You know, that's kind of offensive when I hear you calling people this, because, you know, what I think of is my friend Penny. You know, my friend Penny works at the YMCA where I go swimming twice a week, and she hands me my key and my towel. And she's intellectually challenged. And she knows what retard means. She knows that people that use that word are being mean. And every time I see you use it, I think of Penny. That's really offensive. And you ever stop to think that maybe there are other people reading this thread who have kids that deal with this? Okay? What you're doing with that is morality. You are asserting your morality. This is really important in this vicious environment to say, you know, it's good to be good. Racist, entitled, peckerwood, uneducated, bigoted, lying, ignorant, cowardly scumbags, Republicans. That's an imaginative person, I guess. So, what is that? Very definitely stereotyping, you know. And then I would try to think, you know, do you know a Republican who's not this way? You know, talk about your personal experience. And again, you might be talking to somebody who's on your side of the fence with the issues. So that's not always easy. But this is where the courage part comes in. There's something a lot more important going on than winning this particular battle.
That's right. That's the problem with this. Nobody ever gets to the issues.
That's right. That's right. And we're not going to.
Never get to solve, never get
that's
to work
right.
on, never get to fix
and that's to somebody's advantage. Liberals are scum-sucking, bottom-feeding parasites. That is dehumanization. What do you mean, dehumanization? So what do you say? That's the language of dictators and demagogues. Oh, what do you mean? I've never heard that. Well, then don't take my word for it. Go to WiseGeek. WiseGeek. WiseGeek.com. And just Google, what is dehumanization? And then you're finished with it. The Republicans are shameless. They are cockroaches scattering away.
Never heard of that.
You wouldn't with what you're listening to.
So what's going on there? That is what? Dehumanization. Okay. And specifically, what word is dehumanization? Cockroaches. And in Rwanda, by the way, on the radio stations, before that genocide happened there, that horrible ethnic cleansing, there was, on talk radio there, a constant, you know, hammering away as the Tutsis are cockroaches hiding in the grass. And we're going to cut down the grass and kill the cockroaches. And they had a genocide. People were being killed at the rate of about 300 an hour. I'm not a Dem, but I always loved Jimmy Carter and still do because he is thoughtful and well-behaved. Very positive. This is a person you could talk to, and you can tell him, God, I could have a, you know, I could have a conversation with you. I can't with all the rest of these people, but with you I could talk. Okay. Hussein Obama and his comrades are traitors working for the destruction of our once great country. Well, again, that's such a,
Generalization.
yeah, it's such a strong, you know, it's so accusatory. It's hard to know where to stop, but you do want to identify it. And you want to say, this is scapegoating. To label all conservatives who oppose Obama, his liberal agenda, and big government as racist people filled with hate is just wrong. What is that?
Generalization.
It is kind of positive, I would say. Yeah, yeah. It's like it's this person is rejecting labels. So I would say, yeah, that's good. That's a positive comment. And this is communism and Nazism fly under the same banner of social justice. Now this actually, remember I was talking about one strategy that's really insidious. I don't know if you remember that. That's not even on your little yellow list. But that is a manipulation of a key moral concept. So what's the key moral concept in that? Social justice. Okay, so they're manipulating it. So social justice cannot be a good thing because it was something that communists and Nazis used and supported. Yeah. We can all live in the same country without killing each other. It's a great country. It would be even better if we could find a little civility. Positive. So these are just afterthoughts. So what you're doing is you're moving the trash talk to the front burner. You want to praise the positive. You want to keep a relaxed and fearless presence. And get yourself centered before you even go into it, you know. And if it gets to be too much, you pull away from it. You want to find your feet. You want to know where you stand, speak directly and plainly. And John Wooden was an American basketball coach, and I thought he said something that's such an information age advice. Be quick, but don't hurry. So as you're responding to people, give yourself that extra split second to think, do I really want to respond this way, okay? And don't lose your cool or your orientation. And the answer to this is more free speech. It's not censorship. So you want to mesh strong argument with deep caring. And so you're modeling this for other people, that you can be a fierce debater, but you're not going to be belittling and dehumanizing other human beings.